Alright, so today I was reading Psalms 32, and I just thought it was it was a very good book, and I recommend that you read it as well. And I just wanted to share some of my takeaways. First off, this is a psalm by David. Psalms 32 has 11 verses total. So first, it starts off, "Blessed is the one whose transgressions are forgiven, whose sins are covered. Blessed is the one whose sin the Lord does not count against them, and in whose spirit is no deceit." So I think this verse is pretty cool, because especially the first verse, because guess what? Our sins are forgiven through Jesus. And I think it's just very satisfying to hear, just, but this is before Jesus came and died and was born and stuff. And so this, blessed is the one who's that's us, right? Okay, next. "When I keep silent, my bones wasted away through my groaning all day long. For day and night your hand was heavy on me. My strength was sapped as in the heat of summer. Then I acknowledged my sin to you." So I didn't finish writing the last part of the verse because it's kind of like a contrast between when you keep silent and we keep things in here, you're trying to hide away from God and run away from God and or even when you feel like you have to deal with things on your own, you're keeping silent. I like the Psalms a lot because I think David can be very dramatic and descriptive and poetic. "My bones wasted away through my groaning all day long." And I feel like I first-handedly experienced this today. I made some very unwise decisions, and that's kind of what it felt like, because I was like, crap, and it just feels like you are wasting away. There's no meaning, and you kind of are trying to hide from God through your silence and just avoid him. But he's there, and he'll remind you he's there too. And then it says, "Then I acknowledged my sin to you, whoopsies, and did not cover up my iniquity. I said, I will confess my transgressions to the Lord, and you forgave the guilt of my sin." I really enjoy this verse because I'm not Catholic, but I do very much like the idea of just confession. And just when you're praying to God, it's not just like, oh, I was thankful for this, thank you for this, oh, please help people with this, but also that kind of, God, I sinned against you, please forgive me. That aspect of it I think is very important. And that's something often when I do something I shouldn't and I have guilt, I don't want to do. I just want to stop thinking about it and move on. But it kind of just gnaws away at you. And this kind of represents a reward and how light it can be just to talk to God and bring those things to him. And I did not cover up my iniquity. I think that's important too. Like growing up with my parents, if I did something I shouldn't do, I was not telling them. Unless it's something really big where they're gonna find out regardless, and then I would often try and do something really good, and then it'd be like, oh, I have a confession to make, I did this, and I also did this, and so to kind of just hide the weight of what wrong I had committed. But this says, I did not cover my iniquity, not making excuses for yourself. And then it says, God forgave the guilt of my sin. And I really like the phrasing of this as well, because one, I think it's a good reminder that God forgives, and he will forgive you. If you bring it to him, he will forgive. I think that's something important to remember, because there's often, at least for me especially, there's a fear of admitting your guilt. But God knows everything, and he just wants that relationship with you, and he will forgive you. And I think that's very comforting. I also like how it says, you forgave the guilt of my sin. A lot of times I might know my sins are forgiven, but I don't feel like they should be forgiven, and I let the guilt kind of just gnaw away at me. But I think the wording, you forgave the guilt of my sin, Violet, why are you still worked up about this? You need to fully just give it to God, and just let go of that shame and guilt. All right. Therefore, let all the faithful pray to you while you may be found. Surely the rising of the mighty waters will not reach them. You are my hiding place. You will protect me from trouble and surround me with songs of deliverance. David speaks a lot of God being kind of that hiding place and that secure fortress and solid ground and stuff. And you can see the comparison, the rising of the mighty waters will not reach them, because God is our sanctuary, and he delivered us, and he keeps his promises, and he protects us. I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my loving eye on you. Do not be like the horse or the mule, which have no understanding, but must be controlled by bit and bridle, or they will not come to you. So this is a part of Psalms 32 that I don't quite understand. I will instruct you. Is David speaking? Because is the shifts like God will instruct you, or is it David will instruct whoever he's talking to help them grow closer to the Lord? I'm not quite sure. All right. Many are the woes of the wicked, but the Lord's unfailing love surrounds the one who trusts in him. Now, I think this is funny because throughout Psalms, at least that I've read so far, David always talks about like the wicked or the bad guys, and then he'll talk about himself like, Lord, I have not sinned against you. I've like held up, whatever, and done what you've said and stuff, and which is like great for David. But honestly, when I'm reading those, I feel more like the wicked that he's describing, and then he's like, oh, may all these horrible things happen to these wicked people, and I'm just like, oops. So many are the woes of the wicked, the Lord's, which in this context I would include myself, but the Lord's unfailing love surrounds the one who trusts in him. And for me at least, like despite doing, sinning and doing things I shouldn't, and doing different things outright against God, the Lord's unfailing love will surround me as long as I trust in him. Again, it goes back to just the God being that kind of like relationship that like he wants to have a relationship with you. He wants you to trust him, which is something I struggle doing. But I feel like it can be illogical in that why wouldn't you want to trust in God and get that, receive what he's offering in his unfailing love and stuff. And I just think that's very beautiful. And then our last part of the verse. Rejoice in the Lord and be glad, you righteous. Sing, all you who are upright in heart. Or at least in these past couple passages, I feel like David ends in a very like, rejoice in the Lord note. Regardless of what he talks about beforehand. I feel like a lot of like non-Christians will think like, you have to worship. And it's like, no, we get to worship this sort of awesome, amazing God. And sing, all you are upright in heart. Just, rejoice in the Lord always. I say it again, rejoice. It's just a reminder of how amazing and awesome God is. And I feel like I can often forget about that in life and just focus on just very drab and down things of whether things that I've done or situational things. But just remembering God's goodness and just his ridiculous love for us, and that doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't I rejoice? I just think that's an amazing reminder, and I'm glad that I read Psalms 32 today and had that reminder. So yeah, I recommend you read it too, and I hope you get something out of it.